Hello everyone, friends, this is Mozart. I'm updating my opinion on the market at the start of another week. So, in the last video, or even the one before that, I suggested that the intraday divergence we saw would be resolved in this sideways movement. So far, that's exactly what's happening. For now, we're seeing it resolved within this range. So, there's the divergence in RSI. It's particularly noticeable, and it's also visible in MACD, generally speaking. But this is a 4-hour chart, not a daily one. As for the daily chart, it isn't present yet. Here, we can already draw a channel. Essentially, it's an upward one. It's clearly visible this is the upward channel that supports the price. There was a downward channel, and we broke through it. And there's another downward channel. We're currently trying to break through that one as well. As of this morning, looking at the last two 4-hour candles, if we manage to hold here, we might either go up straight away or after some sort of retest. We're likely to break above this high. The trading volume here is accumulating quite high, so it's very important to hold these levels. I would even say around $85,000. That level, because if the price somehow drops below 85, that would be bad. Then we enter what's called Trump's protection and we could start trading, well, I don't know, all the way down to here, down to 75. Which is unlikely under the current conditions. In the current state of a strong market, it's unlikely. Therefore, I still maintain my opinion that we will stay here for a while. And then we will break this high with a new peak from November 13th. Well, either that way, or through a correction. Either straight away, or through a correction. As for the Dnipro, I remind you, there's nothing so far. No divergences. So it would be quite nice to go up here. And then draw that very divergence. So far there aren't any, and that's very good from the perspective of the daily chart and the overall medium term. So, 87,520 for Bitcoin and 3,044 for Ethereum, these are the two limit orders that were bought back. I posted the limit orders in my Telegram channel, so here's the post from November 13th. Stop, limit orders, take profit, it's all visible. They weren't on YouTube, which is why I always recommend subscribing to my Telegram channel if you don't want to miss my trading insights. The link is in the description below this video. Only Solana hasn't been bought back. Only Solana hasn't been bought back. It's shot off into space. But, to be honest, I'm not too bothered about Solana for one simple reason. Because we have Solana in our midterm portfolio. So, I closed half of my position in Solana at a plus of 72% at 41.2. We bought it back in June, and here's the June post. Oh, I apologize. What was it? Yes, just a second. I updated it in October. June 14th. Yes, I got it right. We bought it at $141. So, it's not crucial. About Solana, and what's important is that Bitcoin and Ethereum have been bought back, and for now, we're still in the market. Well, basically, there's not much more to discuss technically here. So, for now, it's still looking upwards. Despite the geopolitics, despite some weakness in Nasdaq last week, everything is still looking up. Next, as for the blockchains, from the last video we discussed, activity is slightly declining, it's cooling off, and there are some outflows from spot Bitcoin ETFs. So, that's logical profit-taking. Open interest on the CME exchange is also falling. In other words, derivative interest is also falling. The market is cooling off, but not significantly, although there are some early signs. Moving on to the positives, the so-called long-side premium is still present. That is, the premium of open interest in the current growth is small compared to the same premium in March. Just look at the blue curve. So, if the growth in March was over 70% based on speculative interest, that is, on futures, its current position is less than 50%. And I'll say it again, this confirms the true spot growth, the influx of new money into the system. That's why I'm talking about protecting the current level up to $85,000. Moving on, regarding the days of potential growth, we are currently on the 19th day. Yesterday was the 18th day when the price has been in the zone of over 95% profit of the total Bitcoin supply. We still have a window of freedom of 22-25-27 days in places. That's how it is, considering this metric. The avalanche of profits is approaching $40 billion. It has broken through $40 billion, but growth is still possible. The potential is $60-65-70 billion. Considering the strength of the last impulse, there is still room to grow. Next, futures. Here's what is starting to happen with the futures. The futures market is interesting. This thick black line at the top is the price of Bitcoin, and the thin black line at the bottom represents open interest across all exchanges in futures, the so-called minute, meaning the average. And we saw the first throw stick on November 11th. A very serious stick, and the average was 0.042%. 4. One funding write-off, that is, over 8 hours. Third, across all exchanges, this is already a serious involvement of speculators. We can observe a similar involvement in the March edges. So, the first such instance was on February 28th, but this is the first involvement. The first, and it usually continues. Then, this speculative interest starts to decline while the price begins to rise. There's no one left to sell. And then either a trend reversal occurs, or a sharp correction happens. So here in March, for example, we drew a 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, a fourfold divergence. Right now, it's just the first spike. Although speculators are getting very actively involved in this rise, it's important to keep that in mind. So if we see divergences on this indicator, it would be wise to sell everything and wait for a correction of at least 15 to 20%. Specifically, strong divergences, not this low dispersion chop, as I call it, which occurred from April to October of this year, but rather these spikes that have also started now, indeed. Next. This is the same thing, just in a nicer chart. And the overall flows into crypto. They are high. Over the last 30 days, the net inflow amounts to $61 billion. Don't confuse this with profit-taking. This is specifically inflows from all sources, whether it's buying Bitcoin, minting Tether, and so on. And the lower blue line, this curve, represents the market cap of stablecoins, which has also risen significantly in just 1 week. Well, okay, in 10 days, from $3 billion to $10 billion, an increase of $7 billion, indicating how serious the demand is. The market cap also grew. During the March highs, it also turned around through divergence. At its peak, it was also around $10 billion, give or take. But, before that, there were many waves of growth right now. This is just the first wave of growth. The inflows themselves have slightly slowed down, which is logical, as outflows and profit-taking have started. But the stick is high, and, considering that, this is the first wave of growth after a very long correction. Overall, I expect a repeat of this scenario. So in this case, what was happening here? Just a moment, what is happening right now is right here with us. Now we will draw some kind of divergence. Then, we will pull back significantly. Just like it was after the approval of spot Bitcoin ETFs in January, we will pull back strongly, draw a wave on the indicator, and then head into the final growth. Right there. And this is where we will need to sell for me. This current wave is the first wave, conditionally from January-February 2024, which was smaller here. Therefore, there is still some room globally. So, basically, what conclusion can be drawn here? Well, it's encouraging that with Bitcoin's rise, as I mentioned, Bitcoin enters a sideways movement and dominance starts to fall immediately. Dominance begins to drop as soon as Bitcoin is in a sideways trend, and everything starts to unfold. Total altcoin market cap 3, please, $830 billion target for April-May. Sorry, March-April 2022, the target I set, and we are reaching it quite quickly. And here, by the way, it's not a bad idea to take some profits. Already, partially algo has been fixed for us, but the take profit was set a while ago. I haven't touched anything by hand yet, although there's already a decent profit. I have a plus of 39% on a very large investment volume. According to the table, hashtag, the same in the chat, and the current levels are good for taking profits. At least a third, a quarter at minimum, better to take a third. If I do take some out, I'll let you know on Telegram. Stay tuned. Total 3, by the way, is growing very well with the decline in Bitcoin's dominance, and the longer Bitcoin stays in a sideways trend, the more pumps we will see. Litecoin, Ethereum, all that. Alga has taken off. Cardano is flying. Solana too. And everything else will soar. Even Ripple has taken off while Bitcoin is in a sideways trend. From my perspective, this sideways movement, this 4-hour sideways trend for Bitcoin, is just the beginning. So now we'll hang around here, maybe make a new high, head up there, and then correct more strongly. We could see a correction of about 10 to 13% here. And here we'll enter a more serious sideways movement. This is where the main wave of the pump will begin. So what we're seeing now is just the warm-up. This is just a warm-up, it's not view, and the window for growth in altcoins, as I've mentioned, is roughly until spring, mid to late spring of 2025. Because overall, Bitcoin's dominance on the weekly chart is at its highs. And believe me, it has room to fall, it has places to drop to, at least to touch some moving average, any moving average, really. It hasn't even touched the average since January 15th, since the start of the year. The nearest moving average is 57%. And right now, the closest is almost a 3% drop in current dominance. It's clear that it will rise along with the growth in dominance, even with a drop. But the goal should at least be to touch 50. And accordingly, to fall to some lower Bollinger Band to make a more serious correction from all this growth. According to Fibonacci, this could be 50%. I don't know, but it's possible. A 50% dominance drop from current Bitcoin prices could mean a 10% distribution to altcoins. I just don't know what will happen. Total 3 will then take off. It will catapult. Well, it will break $1 trillion. No doubt about it. That's it, folks. Thank you all for your attention. I'll keep you updated. This was Motford. Have a great weekend. Goodbye, everyone.